right, race fans, Brian Eho and the one and only Bert Lehman. Bert, how you doing, man?
I'm doing really good. On the western part of the state, you guys already have one race in. This upcoming weekend is Shawano Speedway has a practice, so and it's 80 degrees today here in eastern Wisconsin.
We're close. I'm looking outside. It's sunny. The sun's shining. We're close, and the Wissota season almost underway. Well, we're going to get into a little bit that right now. Race fans, we're bringing you episode number 74 of the One to Go Show, brought to you by our friends over in Watertown, South Dakota, Dirt Track Supply. Huge thanks to Ron and Trevor over there. I mean, this is the time of year. If you need parts, if you need anything, parts are hard to get, by the way. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit too. But if you need something, you need fabricating done, get a hold of them guys. They'll take good care of you. And great people over there in Watertown. So dirttracksupply.com. Check it out. And let's get into a weekend review. There's a lot of racing going on. One rain out, I guess, to kind of start. We'll talk about the Southern Nationals. And, I was kind of looking at the World of Outlaw stuff with the Illini 100. Well, then all of a sudden I look at the Southern Nationals, that Schaefer Southern Nationals. I think that's Ray Cook's series down there, I think is what
I believe so.
And I'm like, man, they got some pretty good paying races for this deal. I was pretty impressed. Started looking at some of the drivers going to some of these races. I'm like, I might have to pay attention to some of these. And of course, you said it's Withee. I think it's Withee Speedway. They canceled there on Friday night. So Mother Nature, the winner there. But Saturday night, they went down to Tazewell. And Bert, I looked at that track was like a big old bowl. And I'm like, Jeff said, our late model expert said, kind of like a big toilet bowl, which the racing kind of was shitty. So maybe he's right. I'm not really sure.
I actually tuned in live for the feature for that event. And when I first saw the track, I thought, oh, that would be a cool race or cool place to watch a race at. But then I watched the feature. Well, maybe not.
Yeah, it's so banked that it was just top dominant. I mean, you went down, it kind of bowled out like this. So if you went down to the bottom, you got in the flat, you just lose all your speed. And you just kind of had to keep that thing revved up. But they had the Bill Corum Memorial, Bert, 21,000 to win. That's a good paying race. That's borderline. I mean, it's not a crown jewel. It's not, but it's getting to that pay scale of where, we're talking some real money here. And a couple things come to light right away. I looked at the people being there. Jonathan Davenport was there. Jimmy Owens. I think Turbo was at that one.
Overton
was there. And then all of a sudden, on a last minute deal, this number 6 dude, Keith can maybe, he's not on the show. Kyle Larson. Oh yeah, that's what that guy's name is. He showed up to that race too. It's like, all right, they got some hitters here. Plus they had some regulars in that area that really run well at home, like McIntosh and some of those guys. Bert, I know you watched that race live. Why don't you just kind of talk about, what stuck out to you and kind of what happened in that race at Tazewell?
Well, I mean, what stuck out to me, Jonathan Davenport won the race. So, I mean, we've talked a lot on this show about, his ups and downs, and it seems like he's definitely on the up right now after winning Bristol and now winning this Southern race this last weekend. And I mean, there were some restarts where some drivers kind of got close to him, but I mean, otherwise Davenport pretty much dominated. A little surprising that Brendan Overton didn't have a better showing. I think he finished like 9th or so.
Yeah, 8th, 9th, somewhere. It was in the top 10, but really just a non-factor the whole night, which is not normal for Big Sexy.
Yeah, and then Jimmy Owens started deep in the field, I think 19th, but he got up to around the top 5, 5th or so.
Yeah, he got 6th. Jimmy Owens got 6th, but still, I mean, he got up there. He passed a few cars, but he was both of them to outside the top 5. Really, not much of a factor in the race, but at least that's a couple notables that were there. Would you say, Bert, the best race, in my opinion, was really kind of between Kyle Larson and Turbo? They kind of swapped.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. They swapped positions a couple of times, and which was actually was kind of interesting because as I was watching it, I mean, Turbo has his podcast on Dirt, where he's a co-host of a podcast, and I remember watching one of his podcasts listening to it, and they were talking about Kyle Larson, and he just flat out said that he hopes Kyle Larson doesn't do well because he doesn't think it's good for dirt late model racing for somebody to just come in and start winning right away in a division they've never raced before.
Yeah, there might be a little jealousy there. It might be an ego thing too. I'm just saying, you get some other dude come in and kind of rains on your parade a little bit. Now, neither one of those two are afraid to chuck a slider. I'm telling you, Turbo will slide down 3 or 4 guys at a time, but so will Kyle Larson, and that's why he's so darn good in them open wheels too, because he's not afraid to get in the pump. So those two, Kyle seems like he's just a little guy, right? He's like a horse jockey, little tiny guy. So I don't think he wants to get into it with Turbo, but the fact is, behind the wheel, both of those two are highly entertaining to watch. In fact, if you take Davenport out of that race, who clearly just dominated, that would have been a hell of a battle for the lead between them two.
Yeah. And, as I was watching it, I was wondering if Turbo was going to trade a little paint there. You kind of, the drivers that you race against weekly, you kind of, maybe give them a little bit of leeway, but, I wasn't expecting Turbo to give Larson any leeway at all.
No, I think you're right. Not a lot of leeway to be had there. But needless to say, it was a pretty good race, and Jonathan Davenport on a hot streak right now. Boy, I don't even know. He's got to have 5, maybe 6, 5 wins for sure, but maybe 6. So I think he's out of all the national drivers, he's got to be leading the win count right now, which, as bad as he ran in Florida, like we talked about him down in Arizona, we're like, man, he's back. He's good. Mm-hmm. He goes to Florida. We're like, nope, just kidding. He's not. he's terrible again. And then all of a sudden he gets that second there, and he's like, that's it. I'm going home. And I think he skipped Volusia, and then he's like, now he's back. He looked really good at Bristol. He looked really good there. So we'll see if maybe he has. We'll see what happens this weekend. I think he's heading up to Bristol. That's on his schedule. But let's jump over to I guess, in my opinion, the best racing of the weekend was the World of Outlaw late models over at Farmer City, the Illini 100. Man, Bert, there was some good stuff, and I know you watched all of that. I'm going to let you go ahead and start, and we'll talk about our picks. We'll talk about what I saw. But let's talk about night number 1 first. What stuck out to you on night number 1? And I believe that one was for, I think 6,000 to win. And I think it was it 20 grand to win on night 2? I think it was.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So they had some good money on the line. 6 grand to win. It was still a point show. But what stuck out to you on Friday night?
Well, I just watched the features from the 2 nights. I didn't watch the heat races. But I mean, obviously, the first thing that comes to mind for me from night 1 is a local driver. I mean, he lives a few hours away from me, but he's from eastern Wisconsin down by Milwaukee. Taylor Scheffler went down there and had overall quick time. And so, that was impressive. That was the race he started on the front row in the feature, wasn't it?
Yep.
Faded back to 15th in the final rundown. But I mean, to be overall quick, and when he won his heat race, and he didn't have any slouches in his heat race either. I mean, pretty much the top drivers were in his heat race. So, very good weekend for Taylor Scheffler.
Yeah, he made the trip down. He ran down there quite a few times last year between there a few nights at Fairbury, and that's only going to gain him experience. You run against that caliber of drivers. I mean, if you're a little off, you backpedal in a quick hurry. And we'll talk about some of the guys that were not just a little bit off, but Scheffler, yeah, he had a good weekend there overall. Not a top 5 runs or whatever, but
right.
He ran with them, and he shows that he's maybe making them strides to where maybe he can start running top 5 with them guys.
I mean, part of having good finishes in the feature is starting near the front. And I mean, he backed up his fast time on the second night. I mean, not to jump ahead too far, but he didn't have overall quick time, but he had quick time in his group. So he was the second fastest driver. Well, he led his group. And so, to have good finishes, you have to start near the front. And if you want to start near the front, you have to qualify well. And he started last year already. He was qualifying well down at those tracks. So he's gotten the hang of qualifying. Now he can just move on to the next step.
like Rowdy Burns said, now let's see what we can do in a group, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, needless to say, another guy that went down there from Wisconsin, Jimmy Mars, and oof, did he have a rough weekend? He actually led the heat the first night, and then I think he got together. I don't remember who it was with, but they got together. I think maybe Spatola got into his left front, and he ended up with a left front flat. Well, that put him in the back of the B main, and it went from bad to worse. And Jimmy Mars just not a good weekend for the Iceman. But let's talk about the feature, because that feature the first night was incredible. The second night was good too, but the first night was unbelievable in my opinion. What stuck out to you from the A main $6,000 to win night number one of the Illini 100?
Bobby Pierce is known for his sliders, and he one went bad. Well, as he described it, he tried a slider, but it didn't work. Well, yeah, it didn't work because Shirley was right next to him, and basically body slammed Shirley into the wall. And Pierce said that's racing, but I don't know about that.
And at that time, there was 5 Illinois guys in the top 5, right? So, we're talking they had a great performance from that Illinois group. But, yeah, he just land blasted them and really knocked Shirley out of contention. I think Shirley maybe ended up 7th or 8th or something after that deal. But in the same breath, though, that was coming off of turn 2. I don't remember what. So that was coming off turn 2. And then getting into turn 3, Lanigan power chopped. I think it was Lanigan. Yeah, Lanigan power chopped 20 RT into the tire. And Thornton got spun around. Yellow comes out. Thornton goes to the back on that deal. So 2 unrelated incidents, all like in the top 5. And literally, next thing you know, like the whole top 5 was all shaken up after like one straightaway of racing. It was crazy. And then it come down to the end, and I tell you, there are a couple guys that were locals there really looked good. Spatola, Unzicker, and then of course Pierce got into the top 3. And how did that pan out?
Well, Spatola went on to win his first Outlaw. I believe it was his first World of Outlaw feature. And I watched the interview that they had with him afterwards, and they asked him about all the cautions, if he was glad the cautions came out, because that way there was less traffic and whatnot. And he said he hated the cautions. He was a nervous wreck that entire race, is what he said. But yeah, he won. Unzicker was second, and Pierce was third. Did you see late in the race, Unzicker punt a tire coming out of 2?
Yeah,
he just kept on going. It didn't affect him at all. He just kept on going.
Yeah, he's lucky he hit the tire correctly, if there is such a thing, because it could have easily ripped the left front right off the car. Brandon Shepard, who not qualifying well, right? He started deep in that deal, 18th. He did get up into the top 5 at the end of that deal. But what a race. Unzicker was inside him. He was charging to the inside of Spatola. And I watched a lot from Fairbury last year, and that's kind of how it worked. That they call him Opie. Spatola just charges the high side. He's not afraid to push the cushion. Unzicker will run the cushion, but he seems like he's pretty good on the bottom too. So great battle up front. 4 of the top 5 in that deal, Illini guys. And that tells you that Hell Tour right there is entertaining. There is some quality race car drivers, and that's going to lead me to a question. And before we get into Saturday, here's a question I have for you. So we see the World of Outlaw guys, the Lucas guys, they come up into the Wissota region, so to speak, and they'll have shows, and they kind of fill in the rest of the field with a lot of times Wissota cars or Wissota legal cars. Every once in a while, a Wissota guy might throw an open motor in and run with them, but they don't normally run that. And I look at a show like this where the Woo guys come to, of course, Farmer City, and all the guys that race in that area, well, they're running open late model rules weekly all year long. Does that produce a better show, in your opinion?
I think so. If you have drivers who are normally running those rules anyway, they're going to know what their car does on a track. That they're familiar with in the first place. Like I mean, I'll use Eastern Wisconsin because that's what I'm more familiar with. But when the World of Outlaws come up to Eastern Wisconsin, yeah, some drivers may drop an open motor in, but they don't race that every week. So they don't necessarily know what the setup is going to do when they hit the track with an open motor, because the motor, I mean, I'm not an expert, but the motor weighs different than what, a steel motor does. And setup is everything. And, that was one of the biggest complaints about the Shawano Speedway World of Outlaw show was the locals have no chance, on a half-mile track. With the smaller motors that they run. So I think if all the cars are used to running those same rules, it's going to make good racing. And plus the Illinois area, like you said, they have the Hell Tour that they race on, and that can be grueling. And you're racing against, some top drivers, 7 days out of the week.
Well, just think about some of the guys that we see, right? And they don't all run the Hell Tour. A lot of them run some of it, but you look at Shepard, you look at Shirley, Unziker, Jason Fager, of course, Spatola, the Gundakers, Dennis Erb Jr. The list kind of goes on and on. I mean, there is a stout group of cars just from Illinois. And Illinois is not a huge state, but it's hard to believe there's that many good top quality, like national late model touring guys that come from the state of Illinois. So it's going to be fun to see what they can do. There's of course races coming up, more at Farmer City. There's some stuff at LaSalle. There's stuff at Peoria. There's stuff. Fairbury is literally my favorite track right now to watch. So I'm excited for some of those races. But I think we're right on the right track. I look at, even when they come to Wausoda area, they go to a track, say like Superior or whatever. Yeah, I mean, if the track's slippery enough, some of the Wausoda guys can keep up. But if there was grip on the track in Superior, then Wausoda guys ain't keeping up. And it's just not as entertaining as it is when they go to Illinois when they're already running that stuff. So, interesting deal. Let's get into Saturday.
Well, before we get to Saturday, I just want to mention, a point to make is, we've talked on here before about, whether Mars MB Customs, wishes they had more national drivers. Well, Unziker just switched to MB Customs this year. So, they may not have some of the top names, but they have some pretty good drivers under their belt, that are racing their chassis. So, maybe there should be another outlaw driver that should be switching a chassis.
Yeah, we'll talk about him. Maybe he already switched the chassis. Maybe he needs to switch again. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure who you're talking about, but I know who I'm talking about. Well, let's get into Saturday, and then we'll get into that, because that right there is kind of something that's a little troubling for me. But night number 2, Saturday, the 20 grand to win, the Illini 75, because they had a 25 lapper, I believe, night 1. Pierce led the lion's share of that race. And yellow comes out, 5 to go. I think there was 5 to go. And on the restart, it's like he was almost overwhelmed. Like he was way overthinking. Like on the restart, I don't know if you saw when he hit the gas when they went green, he did one of the things way up to the outside to try to get a run. And it's like, why are you're like leaving the door open, making things complicated. He comes in, he jumps a cushion. There goes Dillard for the lead. It's like, dude, just hit your marks. And he just way overthought it. Like, do you think that maybe on that restart that he had kind of like a lot of pressure on him, and then he just like almost borderline panicked and almost gave that race away?
Yeah, I don't know what was going through his mind, but you normally don't see that. Usually if Pierce is in front when there's a high side, late in the race, he's going to win the race. Well, actually, he's lucky there was a high side. Well, he made the high side work the last couple laps because he was able to recover and did one of his patented sliders going into, it would be 3 and 4, right? And because normally when that track configuration seems different than other ones, the way the camera angle is for some reason.
The camera's on the back straightaway there too, right?
I'm trying to remember. I mean, their flagman is in the infield, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird deal. Yeah.
But anyway.
Needless to say, it was a Bobby Pierce slider that he chucked going for the white. So, no, it's in the front straightaway because he was coming off 4, I believe, I think he threw the slider getting into
Yeah,
three.
3 and 4. Yeah.
And they were coming
Yeah.
to the white flag. So, yeah, the camera's in the front straightaway, but yeah, the flag man is kind of down in the infield. He chucked that slider. Now, before we got to that part, RTJ came from a few rows back. He was kind of coming, and I don't know if he hit the cushion, smacked the wall, but he folded his J bar. That ended his night. He hit, I don't know if it was from the cushion or from the wall or a combination of both, but he was in second, and then he was done. And it looked like if there was no yellow, it was just completely over. Bobby Pierce was gone, but that yellow, that made things interesting. Cade Dillard, literally took the lead, actually led about 2-3 laps there at the end, and then coming to one to go, here comes Bobby Pierce by him. So, again, Illinois guys look good. B-Chef up in the top 3 there. He came from pretty deep. Dillard, another MB. So MB's got second both nights. Mm-hmm. Cody Mallory, I don't know who needs you, man. I mean, like literally, you quit or I don't know what happened there. So Cody Mallory signs on with Bobby Pierce, and like that's kind of the big news is he got Jimmy Owens, his old crew chief guy, and he's going to go pit for Bobby Pierce. And next thing you know, Pierce looked pretty fast, and then they part ways. I heard the rumor that he wanted Cody to move to Illinois. Cody didn't want to move to Illinois. So then they just parted ways, and next thing you know, Cody's at that next race with the high side tickler Kyle Strickler. And who parks it in victory lane? Bobby Pierce. So it's like, all right, dude, don't need you. I just won. It's kind of interesting development on the first weekend without his crew chief, don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, I read on Dirt that was the reason that was he didn't want to move to Illinois. But he was still gonna do some consulting with Pierce and that sort of thing. But yeah, one thing that was really weird to me in that race was 1 and 2, the low side, they're actually like almost racing off the track, racing on the infield because it's a complete different dirt structure where the drivers that were racing in the low groove were actually racing on the track. I mean, you could see the dust flying every time there was somebody racing the low groove, but they made it work.
Well, they had tractor tires down there, so
right.
They had them moved in just a little bit, but you can tell the local guys really knew how to kind of hit the bottom. They ran really well. Now, they also had turtle races. I don't know if you saw that, if they were at intermission or what, but they actually the chassis of choice right now for turtle racing, Sniper chassis. Really good at turtle racing. They're really good at going slow. I don't know what his deal is, man. I'm telling you, like, maybe he needs to just like scrap that whole deal and get into something else because he's not even competitive. And we're talking about Ricky Weiss, who is quite honestly one of the most talented guys out there. He's a hell of a wheelman. The guy's a good driver. They're missing something. I mean, like literally in the heat race, both nights he's like running like last or second to last. I mean, he's just not even competitive. Sneaks in with a couple provisionals, and I think he got, I'm looking here, a 22nd and a 17th place finish. A lot of that due to attrition. Now, I'm just saying, okay, you can't call it a sniper chassis if you're shooting a Nerf gun. All right, I'm just saying, okay. And I hope they go faster. And come to find out that Massengill still has his kryptonite because of parts issues. All across the country right now, people are trying to get parts, get cars done. They talk to them down at Affordable. They're having a hard time getting parts. So he's like, we're still waiting on stuff. We're starting with the kryptonite. I'm like, maybe that's a good thing because whatever Ricky's got going on right now, he's a non-factor. I mean, he's not even remotely competitive. So we'll see if he can turn this deal around. But right now, things for the 7 car, not looking good. He's going to have to step it up just a little bit, or he's getting for a long, long season. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that was the driver I was referring to with my comments before. Yeah, I mean, he may not have to scrap doing the new chassis, but I think they need to put it on hold. I think they need to get into a chassis that they can be competitive in, continue to, develop the sniper chassis if they want to continue to do that, and then race it in local show, race it in shows. I mean, he's racing for points in World of Outlaws, so he needs to race the sniper chassis in shows not for points for World of Outlaws, where his living is determined, and and continue to do research and development. I mean, when you build something, it just doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it's a process, and you have to do research and development, make changes, and it's tough to do a research and development and compete for a championship at the same time.
Well, another thing is this is he's one of the few guys. He's just not racing, right? He's running the World of Outlaw stuff. You don't see him. There's other guys. You see Shepard, and you see a lot of these guys. When there's other shows going on, they're showing up, and where's the 7 car? I mean, literally half of Florida, he wasn't down there for some of that stuff. He wasn't at Bristol. He went to Bristol for the practice the week before, but didn't go back the following weekend. There's a lot of shows, and where he's based out of, he has the ability to go run some of these shows. In my eyes, maybe it's a money issue. I don't know if they're lacking sponsor money. I don't know where they're at, but you would think that he'd be running as much as possible right now to get that thing dialed in, because if he would have run 6-8 more shows, maybe non-World of Outlaw shows that he could have raced, maybe some of them bugs would be worked out, and maybe he wouldn't be flopping around in the back like a turtle right now. So I don't know. My advice to him is race. I mean, if you got a car out there that you're struggling with, you better figure it out. And if, like you said, I mean, he can go get a different chassis, something that's proven, something that's running well, and get one of them and win races. But if they're really serious about developing what they have, you ain't going to develop it in the shop. You need to develop it on the racetrack. And if you're not racing, how are you going to get better? So I'm not really sure what his mindset, what his reasoning is there. But it'll be interesting. And he better figure it out, because, I mean, it's not like he's a little bit off the pace. I mean, he is incredibly slow right now. And we'll see if that gets any better coming up this week at Bristol.
Yeah, I agree. And I have one more comment about Saturday's race. Did you watch Dillard's post-race interview on Dirt on Dirt?
Nope.
Well, first of all, Dillard, he said he's kicking himself because he feels he gave that one away, because he said he should have went to the high side and just let her rip, but he didn't. But the other thing that was really interesting was they interviewed him by his car, and laying on the car by the cockpit was half of a drive shaft. And what he said happened was some slower, lap cars, a drive shaft came off of one of those, hit him in the shoulder, and it lodged in his cockpit. He said, luckily it didn't lodge by the pedals. So, I mean, he was able to keep racing, but he had a drive shaft in his cockpit.
Wow. I did not know that. That's interesting. And I guess that's one of the, I've been saying for a little while, oh, you don't need carbon fiber. You don't need carbon fiber. But maybe that proves right there that is a good idea, because if that would have been an aluminum or steel drive shaft that hit him in the shoulder, that would have left a lot more of a mark, right?
Yeah.
So maybe there is something to the carbon fiber stuff for sure. At the end of the day, I mean, I can promise you, I know what happens when an aluminum drive shaft comes up into the cockpit, or a steel one. So that's interesting. I didn't know that. That's crazy. I'll have to check out that interview. I have literally never seen that in my life, where you race a race and you got the drive shaft in the cockpit. That's yeah, he got dang lucky on that one. Well,
right.
Bert, what do you say we do our buddy Keith a favor, get into a little buggy action, talk about the world. Oh, before we get into that, I do want to point out the Illini 100. Bert, I got to give you some props, because you are the only one that picked correctly on that deal. You picked Bobby Pierce to win the big one there. So you did get the pick right. The rest of us did not. So good job on that one. Now we'll get into the World of Outlaw Sprints. They went down to Peabody, Missouri, I-55, Friday, Saturday doubleheader. And Donnie Schatz out to a lead. And it was early in the race, halfway through, and again leading, trying to get number 300, DNF. I don't know what the problem was, if it was ignition again. I did not look back to see what the problem was, but needless to say, it broke. They push started them, He got going. He pulled back in the infield again, but he had some kind of a mechanical issue there. So Schatz still hanging around at number 299, looking for 300 with the World of Outlaws. The Big Cat, I tell you, we'll just go Friday and Saturday on this one because nothing majorly dramatic happened. But Brad Sweet doubled up, not only making it 3 in a row on Friday night, but he just made it 4 in a row for the World of Outlaws. So your reigning champion right now is in championship form in that 49. I think maybe it's the blue and yellow. I don't know. I'm just saying, But I tell you, he's been bolted. Now I will say this: you picked Sweet on day one, yep. So that's 2. I picked him both days. So I got Sweet both days. So you and I both had 2 correct. And boy, I'm looking through the list here, and I'm going to look at my phone really quick here, Bert. But I don't believe that anybody else got anything else right. I'm just saying, guys, pick up the pace a little bit here. I'm talking to Jeff, Pete, and Keith. You're going to have to pick it up. You're going to have to pick it up because right now our picks after this past weekend, I'm at 6. Bert's nipping at my heels right now at 5. Pete is at 3. Jeff's at 2. And Keith is hanging out back with Ricky Weiss back there somewhere. So you're going to have to pick it up just a little bit. But Brad Sweet kind of dominating right now in the World of Outlaws. And I tell you, he's looking good. And it's been fun to watch. The second day, it was kind of, if there's such thing as a boring World of Outlaw race, it was kind of boring. Even Keith texted me, goes, that was kind of a boring sprint car race. I'm like, yeah, they don't happen too often, but it wasn't real racy there on night number 2. So, and did you, anything stick out to you from the World of Outlaws there, Bert?
No, I mean, just other than, Sweet is definitely on a roll right now. So we'll see if he can continue that. He's going to be tough to beat for the championship, obviously, if he keeps this up all season.
Yeah, he's on fire right now for sure. For sure. Now, let's get into some modified action. They were down. They had a rain out. They had to change things around due to weather. So they had the USMTS guys went up to Webster City to the Hamilton County Speedway for a double header up there. And I believe they paid $5,000 to win on day 1 and $10,000 to win on day 2. Bert, from the USMTS modifieds, what stuck out to you? Anything stick out?
Are we talking just the first night or both nights?
We'll talk about both. We can mix it all together.
Well, it was definitely the glory of winning and the agony of defeat for Terry Phillips. He won the first night, Friday night. He won, and then early in the race, the second night. Not only did he hit the wall once, but he hit. He tagged the wall once, and I didn't even know how he could continue after he hit it that time, because he hit it pretty hard with his rear end, but he continued around, and that same corner, the car just would not turn at all, and he slammed it even harder than the first time, and obviously that was the end of his night.
He tore some stuff up for sure. It looked like it was pretty much everything on the right front, I think, was junk on the 75. So, like you said, he won night 1, leading. He's leading the USMTS championship points. Started outside pole on night 2, and he's got to be kicking himself because, that's a 26th place finish. Even if he would have just been conservative in that deal, finished right top 5, he really had a bad point night. And with 34 or 36 shows, you don't want too many of those. So he kind of let opportunity slip away and kind of let a few people back into the hunt, so to speak. Because if he would have doubled up on that deal, or at least ran podium maybe the second night, he'd start stretching out that point lead, and nobody wants to see that for 70,000 to win on the line, for sure.
Right, exactly. And there was some good runs though by some local drivers from the western side of Wisconsin and Minnesota. More so Minnesota.
I was going to say Minnesota. Yeah, Minnesota. So night number 1, of course, went to Terry Phillips, but actually Dan Ebert ran really good. Jake O'Neill got second, but Dan Ebert, night number 1, started 9th, and he got up to 3rd. So a great run for the 60. Jesse Glenn still not quite where he needs to be with the USMTS stuff yet. He got 12th. He finished towards the back there on night number 2. He's there, but he's not he's missing something right now in that 89X. But on Saturday, Dustin Sorensen, man, I tell you, he come charging around the high side there. There was a yellow. I think there was like 7 to go, and Hughes and O'Neill and them guys were up front. And here comes Sorensen carving on the high side, and he's stormed by everybody. I don't even remember where he was on that last restart. I feel like he was in like 4th maybe or something like that, and he just went up top, and he was impressive. Great to see the young gun. I think he's from right around the Rochester, Winona area, somewhere in that neighborhood, but he got her done there. And another guy, Dan Ebert, I tell you, he came from 16th to 2nd, and then on that restart, he stayed on the bottom, and you could see he must have been pretty soft on the right front because he was kind of bottoming out and causing a push, so he couldn't quite rotate in, and he slipped back to 4th, but a 3rd and a 4th place finish, both top 5s for the 60. Great run by him. Terry Phillips got 26th. O'Neill is a guy, he got a pair of seconds. Jake O'Neill ran very well in that LG2 car. 3rd place was Hughes. Yeah, and then, like I said, Ebert got 4th. Terry Phillips is kind of the story, though. You win one, you have your outside pole on another one, and you kind of flop. He's got to be disappointed. But I would say, for me right now, I really enjoy watching that 60 car. One of the best WISSOTA modified drivers out there by far, easily be in the top 3 in the power rankings if they were running primarily WISSOTA, but he's not. And interesting, he's living in Charlotte. He was talking, Bert, about, they were going to wait to see how the weekend kind of went before they decided if they were going to continue to follow the whole series. And I'm assuming after a weekend like that he's going to stick with it just a little bit longer, because he's slid up into the top 7 in points now. He's within striking distance, a few good runs. He'd be right in the mix of things. And that's probably going to make a lot of the WISSOTA guys pretty happy, right? Because they don't have to see him every week then. But it's got to be a little bit of a challenge because he lives now in Mooresville, North Carolina. So, I talked to him, and he had to, fly in. He flew in, I believe, Thursday night. I think he flew over there to race. So he's got some extra expenses, a little bit of a – I don't even know who's working on the car, because if he's living down there, I wonder if it's his dad. Must have a pit crew taking care of all the car and stuff because he's not there. So a little bit of a interesting story to kind of follow with that 60.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean – North Carolina is a hub of racing, but not necessarily dirt racing. USMTS racing.
But the mods, I tell you, they got some good mods. I mean, that's where Lethal is, right? So he's right there down by, David Stremme. But then, of course, Hoffman's there with his Elite, and of course, Longhorn by Lowenbro with Steve Arpin at the helm there. So it's kind of the hub for the UMP style, and I guess there's a lot of Lethals. There's getting to be a lot more Lethals in our area. Not so much the Longhorns or the Elites, but boy, there's a lot of knowledge. And I tell you, that kid's already smart. I mean, him and his dad are very, very smart. His dad used to work with Dick Trickle, and they're very, very smart minds, engineering mindset. Mix that with an immense talent behind the wheel. It'd be interesting to see what kind of knowledge he can pick up while down in Mooresville, because, of course, that's where the Fox Shocks. He takes care of all the circle track stuff, I believe, for Fox, and he's working with a lot of those other guys. Nick Hoffman, who has an Elite, of course, he's on Fox himself, right? And then there's some dirt late model guys running Fox. So very sharp guy. It's interesting, and he's moved around a little bit. He was down in Kentucky a few years back, and he was working with Jackie Boggs down there. So he's kind of bounced around, and he's been, of course, in the snowmobile stuff there. The snowcross stuff, I think it's Arctic Cat that he was with. So he's used to kind of traveling all over the countryside. At some point, he's going to say, I'm going to live here. I don't know if that'll be anytime in the next 20 years or not, but, he bounces around a lot. But it'll be interesting to see if that 60 car continues to follow the series. And we'll see if that traveling maybe plays a toll on some of them things, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how long he follows it. And, I haven't watched the USMTS for, the last several races, but, like I said, I watched these, and Saturday's show, you couldn't stop from watching it because it was, there's a blanket over the top 5 cars, and it was very good racing. So I'm looking forward to watching more.
I really hope the car counts stay high, because right now a lot of you look at the guys that are racing there, a lot of them race different areas, but their stuff just ain't open yet. So I'm hoping that many cars follow, because it dwindled a little bit from the week before, quite a bit, like almost half from the week before. But it'll be interesting to see how that develops as the season goes on. Hopefully they can continue with some big car counts, because you're right, the racing has been phenomenal with the USMTS, and turns out none of us picked anybody right for the USMTS, so that didn't work out very good for any of us.
Yeah, I think Rodney Sanders wants me to stop picking him, so I may do that.
Yeah, no doubt. I picked Ramirez, and he had a horrible weekend too. So, well, let's get into the local racing. We have one track open up in what I would consider our local area, and that's the Cedar Lake Speedway. And I remember, Bert, when I was in Super Stocks years back, I'd pull into Cedar Lake for the opener, and it was like you were pulling into a huge special. I mean, there was 60 supers and mods and 40 to 50 late models. I mean, the place was jam-packed with cars, and not so much now. I think there's like you might have the exact number in front of you. In fact, I could look it up, at 130 cars maybe in 7 classes, 10 late models. Wow. And I'm talking some of the late model guys that were not there, right? Our locals, Pat Dorr lives in New Richmond. I know where he was. Both Hannisteds weren't there, right? Radetzky wasn't there. Chad Mader wasn't there. AJ Demo wasn't there, right? So you start looking at some of these guys. Joel Collins wasn't there. It's kind of interesting. And you look at the 10 late models they had, like 5 of them, Bert, are guys that once their stuff opens up, they don't race Cedar Lake. And
right. I mean, Justin Ritchie, who, from Eastern Wisconsin, he was there, but yeah, I mean, he's not going to be there during the season. So that's one for sure.
Well, here's a question I have. So do you think that Cedar Lake would have more cars if they went back to Wissota, right? Because do you think some of the guys that are like, well, there's no Wissota points, there's no reason to go down there? Super Stocks seemed like they had a pretty good field of cars, but do you think that plays a point? Do you think people don't care? Why? I mean, and it's kind of been this way the last few years at Cedar at their openers. It's like, where is everybody? It's like, well, it's a ghost town for race cars, especially late models, and it's like, where is everybody? Are they? I mean, I remember back when I was racing, I was gung-ho. It's like I was not missing Cedar Lake opener. It just wasn't. I was there for sure. Whether I was ready or not, I was going. And now it's just not the case. There's so many people that are like, well, we'll wait another week or two. And it's like, is people just not that hungry? Are they not that hungry to go to Cedar? I don't know what the reasoning is there. They should be concerned. Yeah, they had a really good fan count, so they made a bunch of money. They did good.
Well,
but the car count was brutal.
And they had pretty good weather for the first weekend of April. So, I mean, you can't blame the weather for the low car count. As much as, a lot of times when I talk to drivers, they always tell me, yeah, I don't race for points. I don't care about points, blah, blah, blah. But I think deep down, it does hurt a track if they're not racing for something other than just the purse for the night. Right. I think there has to be an ultimate goal for some drivers for them to go. Does Cedar Lake, even for late models especially, do they even race for a track championship?
Well, last year they didn't, but they have the dash. It looks like there's a bunch of dash races this year. So I think anything that's considered a dash race, I think, goes towards their track point deal. So they do have a track championship for all the classes, but a lot of the guys, especially the late models that race Cedar Lake, well, they'll leave there in a hurry if there's a special elsewhere, whether it's a Challenge Series special or a bigger paying show somewhere else. They just leave. So there's not a lot of loyalty like there used to be by drivers going to Cedar Lake, which, I mean, it's still kind of the mecca as far as facilities, all that to speak. But the local racing, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if the car counts improve over the year. We'll have to watch and see, but not very impressed with the car counts to open up.
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems like, and I mean, I'm not knocking the track. I mean, maybe this is their goal, but it almost seems like Cedar Lake has become more special oriented rather than weekly racing oriented. I know that's one of the complaints of Eldora now is, that the local drivers who used to race there weekly don't even really get a chance to race there anymore because all Eldora has is specials. And it kind of seems like Cedar Lake kind of moves towards that philosophy a little bit. I don't know if that's the case, but that from an outsider looking in, that's what it kind of looks like to me.
Well, I think there's some truth to that, but what these promoters don't understand, Bert, is specials are better if all the tracks if they have a big fan base, if they have a big following, like on weekly programs, that means that there's a lot more fans to be had. So when you do have a special, there's a lot more race fans. And it's like over the last 20 years, tracks, none of them, not just Cedar, but none of them have really done anything to try to build the fan base. They promote the racing aspect of it, which I get it. It's a racetrack, but they're promoting racing. You're not bringing in new fans. They got to be doing some things to bring in new fans. And Cedar Lake, of all places, should realize this because the most profitable night of the year they have is their bus races, right? And that brings in a whole demographic of people that's not typically race fans. Well, if you do something gimmicky like that each and every night, it doesn't need to be to that extent, but something gimmicky where you're bringing in fans every night that aren't normally race fans, then you can start turning those people into race fans. And I just, for the life of me, I don't understand why these tracks haven't done it. Now, with that said, the fan count they had, Bert, I've heard some numbers, and I think some of the numbers I heard were kind of inflated, but I will say they had a very good crowd because the weather was good. People are hungry and want to get out and about. So the crowd was good. And I didn't see a lot of complaints online. Few people kind of commented on the low late model count, which when you have 10, of course, they're gonna, right? And I think one of them might have been a limited that ran with them. I'm not sure. But the fact is the only way your car count's going to go up is the track has to be good, and you got to treat the racers right, and they got to just continue to build the right culture there. So it's early in the year. It's week number 1, beginning of April. Heck, it's been a while since they've ran that early because of weather. So maybe a lot of people just figured, there's no way they're going to race. They haven't raced that early in a while, so maybe they just weren't quite ready to go yet. But after they saw that they were up and going, they'll probably be ready now.
And that's always one thing that always kind of boggled my mind. You were a former driver, and maybe you can explain this to me as what date the opener is. Why are you struggling at the last week working until 3:00 in the morning to get your car ready for opening night?
Well, I can tell you why I did it because I didn't have any money, right? So mine was all money orientated, and I'd wait on sponsor money and create some extra income and do all these different things to try to generate enough cash flow to have the parts necessary to get out there. And now if a person's in that situation where they're like waiting on money to get the parts they need, that could put them way behind the 8 ball because some of these parts distributors you're a ways out on parts. Sometimes it's a ways. I know, like Winters, for example, they build rear end housings and hubs. It sounds like they're shutting down their whole hub division because they just can't get people to come to work because of the COVID stuff. So that's just how racers work. A sign guy, you talk to people like Buzzy or Jordan over at Outlaw, you talk to some of them guys and they say the same thing. Every racer waits until like the week of racing. Yeah, I need my car lettered. And they're like, we don't even sleep for like 3 weeks or might even be longer because they're lettering so many cars. It's just the way it is. People wait till the last minute. I think a lot of it has to do with just generating that funding to put the new stuff out on the racetrack. And, I remember Kelly Esty, he always got his new car like the middle of the season, and then they take it out towards the end of the year. And then when he'd start the season the next year, his stuff was already ready to go. So as you can see, both Estes were down at the Cedar Lake Speedway. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. But I think the car counts are going to improve. But, let's talk about a few of the races there just briefly. I know Joe Provenzino, very light car count in the USRA late models, but he got her done there. Probably one of the better races of the night, Ashley Merworth, she got it done in the Midwest Mods. Jake Smith had a late race challenge, and she held him at bay to put the 17 in victory lane, so hats off to her. We're going to skip past one here because there's a little bit of drama in my favorite class. The modifieds, though, Shane Sobraski starting right where he left off, just absolutely curb stomping everybody in the modifieds. His third win of the year. We'll have to figure out if it's not going to be a quest to 50 because there's more racing to be had this year. It's going to be higher than that, I promise. But he's at number 3. He got 2 in the X mods in Arizona, but he got his first area win in the well, I guess I shouldn't say Wasota, but in the modified at the Cedar Lake Speedway. The late models burnt Giassi, James Nitro Giassi. He jumped out, slid the guy for the lead. He got by Sammy Mars. Next thing you know, they come in the corner. They're all turned around. I'm like, what just happened? I kind of missed it. Well, he would have, in my mind, I think he was going to drive away from that one. Jake Tim actually won it, but I think Giassi was going to be tough. And he said that when he came into 3 and 4, the last lap, he's not sure if it's from hooking or rut or whatever, but he broke a lift bar. And when he came into turn 1 and 2, the lift bar dug in and it tore shit up in the back of the car. And when you rip the lift bar out, it wrecks a lot of equipment. He was a little disgruntled by that because he's not on a huge budget. He works over at MB, and so he doesn't have a lot of dollars. And he was a little bummed out that, that's a big chunk of change. I guarantee that he was going to have to spend in a win that he was probably going to get. But one thing that happened in the supers, and then I'll let you get into what you saw, is Dave Moss won, kind of. No, he won. He actually put a beat down on him by about a straightaway. Nisolke got out to the early lead, and then Moss kind of tracked him down and drove by him. But the question is, should he have won, right? And I'm going to play the clip right now, folks, so you can kind of see it. You can watch. And it's not, people are going, I know, you just got a rivalry with Dave Moss. Well, that might be true. But the fact is, I don't agree with the call. Bert, I hate this no-fault caution crap. Like, he come in the corner, he clearly got sideways, slid up into the guy, slid up into Nisolke, comes down the track, and there's Terrence Spacek had to spin out to avoid him, right? Spacek's in the infield, Spacek to the back because he stopped because Cedar Lake has their stupid no-fault caution rule. And I guess, Dave can put it in the little mark right there. He got a gift right there. So when something happens later in the year, it kind of equals its way out. He can't be too upset about getting a bad call later because he should not have won that race. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I see where you're coming from. Yes, I mean, Moss definitely spun, got sideways. Actually, the way I saw it, and I mean, I watched it a few times, and actually, I'd like to watch it a few more times. To me, I think he was going to spin out completely. Well, I mean, he actually did wind up spinning out completely, but he kept going. But I think he got hooked together when he got sideways and slid up into the outside car. They kind of got hooked together a little bit, and actually, I think that's what kind of saved them and allowed him to keep going. Otherwise, I think he may have come to a stop after he spun. But yeah, I mean, I've been saying on the show since we started talking about the no fault rule is the reason tracks have the no fault rule is because they don't have to make a judgment call then. And, they're able to just say, okay, you stopped on the track, you go to the back, everybody else gets their spot back. It makes their job easier, but yeah, I mean, you're not punishing the person who actually started the whole mess.
Yeah, I get it, because I mean, it's hard to get officials, right? I mean, it's just there's not a lot of people volunteering for that job, and then it's really hard to get officials that can make a qualified, a call that actually makes sense. But again, it comes down to they even replayed it, right? Dirt Race Central was there with FYE TV, and they replayed it a couple times, and they showed it, right? They showed what happened. In my mind, if you have the footage there, if you have the camera guy there, they should have an official camped out right next to that person, and if they happen to catch it, just look at it and say, well, clearly it was on this guy. He goes to the back. Why not make a call when it's an easy call to make? Why penalize? I mean, Should SpaceX just stay in the gas and just tee them up and drive right through them and keep going? No, then you'd end up with a whole bunch of wrecked race cars. You can't do that. And, I mean, we've all spun out. Every one of us that's raced has spun out and crossed that up and caused a yellow. I mean, I get it. But the fact is, that rule, I mean, it's just going to create boxing matches in the pits. That's all it's going to do because, if they ain't going to penalize a guy, and it's not like he intentionally drove into anybody and spun him out and wrecked him. He didn't do that. He just spun out. So that's a different deal. So you can't really be mad at him, I guess, because he just made a mistake. But the fact of the matter is, we're getting into a world right now where nobody wants to take ownership for anything. And why I talked to some drivers that race at Cedar Lake, and they're like, none of us drivers want this stupid rule. You can't get it through their idiot heads over there to get rid of the rule. And it makes no sense. It's like Cedar Lake is so wrapped up into like, oh, we're Cedar Lake, right? We got World of Outlaw shows and we got the USA Nationals. Well, if you remember what happened at the USA Nationals last year, that no-fault caution rule is the whole reason that Turbo is not racing any WRG stuff, World of Outlaws, or the Hell Tour UMP Summer National stuff, because he's still on suspension because he reacted, because he got flat out screwed because he got spun out by Bobby Pierce. See, if they're going to have that rule, well, then when somebody reacts, when they get a bad call or when they get the wrong end of the deal, just brush that off too. Just say, hey, all right, you're disqualified for the night. Come back racing next week. I mean, you can't have it both ways. If they're going to have that rule, you got to let people police themselves. And if you're not going to let people police themselves, then you need to do the policing. Pick one. I don't know what to say about that. But Cedar Lake, needless to say, they're going night number 2 next week. And let's talk about some upcoming events, Bert. And we'll jump right into that one. So on Dirt Race Central, actually, there's a couple different ways to access this, but watch drc.tv is how you access any Dirt Race Central event. Saturday night number 2 at the Cedar Lake Speedway. It'll be interesting to see what their car counts look like because Ogilvy, Bert, is having a doubleheader Friday and Saturday. Now, a lot of those guys that raced at Cedar Lake this Saturday will be in Ogilvy. So as bad as their car counts were, are they going to be worse, right? Are you going to see a Sobraski? Are you going to see Dave Moss? Are you going to see, I know Kevin Burdick is going for sure over to Ogilvy. So you start looking at some of these drivers and pretty soon they're down into the teens in all their classes. And it's like, now we're in trouble. So 2 races, the first WISSOTA racing action of the 2021 season, Friday and Saturday night, doubleheader at the Ogilvy Raceway. Both of these races and Cedar Lake are all going to be on Dirt Race Central. Bert, are you going to be able to catch any of that action? I know that you're a late model guy, so you're probably a little bit more interested to see what happens at Cedar.
Well, it depends. If they don't have any cars, then it's not going to matter. But no, I mean, I'll check them out. I mean, if I don't watch it live, I'll definitely pick and choose what I want to watch afterward. I mean, actually, I shouldn't say this, but sometimes it's actually kind of nice watching it afterwards because you can just fast forward through the cautions and that sort of thing. So
nice. Yeah, I understand completely. I may have done the same thing a time or two myself. So let's get into a little bit of World of Outlaw stuff. So Dirt Vision, they obviously carry all the World of Outlaw action, whether it's the late models or the sprint cars or even the UMP stuff. They're heading to Bristol, World of Outlaw late models. And, Jeff actually sent me all of our picks here. We're going to start talking about some picks. But Friday and Saturday night, they got the Bristol Bash, $10,000 to win Friday for the late models, $25,000 to win Saturday. They're also running UMP modifieds with that. This was that invite-only deal. Sounds like a few of them drivers were kind of opted out of their invite they're not going. I know Bobby Pierce, Jeff let me know that Bobby Pierce opted out. He's not going to Bristol. He's going, it sounds like he's going to run the Lucas Oil MLRA deal now at Wheatland. So let's talk about our picks. Now, I'll let you go first. I got our picks written down here. Night 1 and night 2 in Bristol. Who do you got, Bert?
We're picking both nights?
Yep.
Okay. I'm assuming he's going to be there since he won a couple weeks ago. I'm going to take Superman for both nights.
All right. Well, that's kind of a interesting deal. So Okay, so Bert has Jonathan Davenport to win night 1 and night 2 at Bristol. Jeff, he's going with RTJ. He has him picked for both nights. Ricky Thornton Jr. Pete said it's going to be about time that Brandon Shepard remembers how to win. If you remember, Bert, he already has half a win this year. I don't consider that quite a full feature win. We're going to give him a half a win on that one. So Pete has Bishop for both nights. Keith also has Davenport for both nights. I'm going to go a little different. I'm taking Davenport for night number 2. I'll take him for the 25,000. So that's 3 of us that got JD. But I'm taking a dark horse here on night number 1. I'm taking the Black Sunshine.
I was waiting for that.
Bloomquist. I tell you, he looked pretty darn good at that last Bristol race. So he kind of likes that half-mile stuff, the big stage. I'm picking Bloomer night 1, Davenport night number 2.
And now, I'm taking Davenport because none of the outlaw drivers except for Bloomquist decided to go there the first time. So they're not going to have the laps on the track that Davenport does.
Yeah, and he's been tough. He's been on fire, and really if you look at even the finishes from the Illini, right, the World of Outlaw guys for the most part really didn't run that good, So yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. Davenport could be the guy.
I did find it funny because I was watching the features, and even the announcers during the race are pointing out that the World of Outlaw drivers are not very high in the standings or in the running order.
I wonder how World Racing Group feels about that right now, because but they own UMP too, so in their mind they're like, well, they're still our guys. It's UMP, right. So it's still their guys. Well, let's get into the sprints, right? So the World of Outlaw sprints, they got 2 shows this weekend. Friday they're heading down to Kokomo. And then Saturday, they're heading to Hobstadt, Indiana, to the Tri-State Speedway. I believe both of these are little bull rings. They're both little quarter-mile deals. And we'll start with our sprint car expert. He'd been picking Sheldon Hodenschild. Okay, Keith he's been like, just, I'm taking Sheldon. He's like, hell with Sheldon. He's been like, he ain't been doing crap. I'm going with Brad Sweet both nights. So Keith has the big cat, okay, 2 nights. Pete, he picked Logan Schuchart to win both nights. Jeff, he says, I'm taking it. He goes, I'm sticking with it. Donnie Schatz is going to win one yet. He's at 299. He's due. He's taking Donnie Schatz for both. I, on the other hand, am going to just throw a curveball to the mix because I rode with Brad Sweet last week. But just because Keith jumped off him, I'm going to take Sheldon Hodenschild both nights. Okay, so I'm going to be that guy. Bert, who do you have night 1 and night 2 for the sprint cars?
I'm going to take Donnie Schatz on the first night, and give me Gravel for the second night.
There you go. That's a pick. That's a good one right there, David Gravel. So there you have it. That's our picks for the week. We got 4 races between us 5. I'm leading by 1. It's still pretty tight, but I got a couple of wild cards in this one, so it could either go really good or really bad for me this week. We'll find out soon enough. Now, some more racing going on, and this series has been pretty cool. On Flow, there's a couple different races on Flow Racing this weekend. Both of them on Saturday night. Now, we'll get into an interesting development here in just a second. But the Schaefer Spring Nationals, again, another good paying show, $10,053 to win at the I-75 Speedway in Sweetwater, Tennessee, right? Now, of course, Bristol is also in Tennessee. So you got Sweetwater, Tennessee. That one's on Flow. It'll be interesting to see who heads to that one because there's so much other racing going on. I mean, you look at all the races going on, it'll be interesting to see. I look at a lot of them guys that were the top tier guys going to Bristol. I don't see them necessarily going to I-75, but 10,053 on the line. Could you maybe see a Brandon Overton show up there?
Well, after his showing at Bristol the first time, it wouldn't shock me if Overton went to the Schaefer's race.
Right. I'm kind of expecting if he was one, because Jimmy Owens, I don't know where he's going. I'd expect to see him at Bristol, but he's right there. So if I were to pick one, because I know that Tyler Erb, it sounds like Erb is going to the MLRA race at Wheatland, I believe. So I'm not really positive who's going to be at I-75. I'm thinking maybe Overton, but I'm not positive. And then the Southern All-Stars, They're actually in Thunder Hill, which is Summertown, Tennessee. That's 5,000 to win on Saturday. So a couple late model races besides of course, the World of Outlaw Bristol Bash going on Flow. And then on Lucas Oil Racing TV, and just to let the fans know, you don't need a subscription yet because they're transitioning to MAV. You don't even need to log in to watch these races. So you just got to go to Lucas Oil Racing TV, and you'll just be able to watch it live. They got a double header, the Lucas Oil MLRA Series opening up down in Wheatland at the Lucas Oil Speedway. $5,000 to win on Friday, $10,000 to win on Saturday. Bert, did you by chance look at their Facebook page at some of the drivers that are going to this?
I know. I just heard that Bobby Pierce was going. I didn't look to see who else was going.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be pretty impressive. I mean, they got Moyer going there. Jake Tim's going to follow that series.
Right.
Look at the Simpson boys.
And there you go. There goes Cedar Lake's feature winner from last week. I mean, he won't be in Cedar Lake.
Correct. So you start looking at it there. That's going to be another good field of cars right there. And it's my understanding that that's where Turbo is going, because obviously he can't go to Bristol. It's a World of Outlaw race, so he can't race there. And it just makes sense for him to go. It's $10,000 to win and $5,000 to win to race there instead of just one show in Tennessee. Right. So I can see Turbo going there as well. So it's going to be interesting to see who all pops in. Maybe the weather will play a part in it. We'll find out. And then the Mars Late Model Series, they're racing on Saturday as well. But before I get into that, so that's 3 races in Tennessee for late models. Of course, it's invite only. They'll be fine at Bristol. But the Mars Late Model Series, Racing Performance Media is actually going to be doing their own streaming. So you got to go to racingperformancemedia.com. I think it's like $25 for the show or whatever. That one's going to be at Peoria, $5,000 to win on Saturday. Now, Bert, if I were Tony Izzo, I'd be really nervous, because between Bristol, the Lucas Oil MLRA, right, between all that stuff that's going on, is he the odd man out on this deal? Where's Gundaker's going to go? Where are they going to go to the Lucas Oil MLRA? Are they going to go there? Where's Heckenass going to go? Where's Brian Shirley going to go? I know Bobby Pierce is going to the Lucas Oil MLRA. Dennis Erb is going to the Bristol Bash. What does that leave them?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a limited number of cars to go around, and there's a lot of high-paying shows across the Midwest, down, the mid part of the United States on south, and yeah, it's tough to say.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Unzicker, right? Maybe he goes.
Right.
So, and there's a lot of specials this weekend between, that's like 5. Now, obviously, the Southern All-Stars one, well, that's Tennessee. So that's not, I mean, they're just kind of down there. But so you got 3 in Tennessee. You got, of course, Wheatland, Missouri, right? And then you have Peoria, Illinois. I guess maybe some of it will depend on weather. I know it's supposed to be a little bit ugly during the week, but I think Saturday's supposed to be nice again. So it'll be interesting to see if they can A, get that show in, and B, who shows up to that show. Hopefully it goes off good. I mean, there's still quite a few local late model guys, but I'd be concerned if I were him with some of the stuff that's going on in the area. Now, the other race that's going on this weekend that I don't know, I haven't heard yet if they're being streamed or not, is the repairable vehicles TriStar or Tri-State Late Model Series. That's opening up over at the Park Jefferson Speedway Friday and Saturday. And as a Wissota late model fan, I'm excited to see that. Hopefully they have it streamed, because I can see a lot of the guys from Wissota, from South Dakota, heading down that way. Maybe a Chad Becker, maybe a Scott Ward. Some of them guys like to make the trip down. I don't know if anybody else will, but those guys typically do. But of course, with Missouri racing, that's kind of, I don't know if that'll pull anybody away, but they'll still get a good field of cars for that double header there. And we'll have to keep an eye and see what happens, because that right there is part of the power rankings region, so to speak. We kind of follow some of them guys. So Bert, what are you most looking forward to this weekend?
I guess Bristol. We've seen late model racing at Bristol this year already, but I think we both agree that the competition past the top 5 cars or so was not what it's going to be this weekend. This upcoming weekend.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday week. We'll just call it week, right?
Well, the late models only raced 2 days.
Now, so Bristol, I have a hard time saying that I'm excited for a half mile. I'm just simply not. I'm more interested to see probably that Lucas Oil MLRA deal. That's going to be a pretty good field of cars. I'm excited for Ogilvy with Soda Racing action underway. That's going to be on Dirt Race Central. Watch drc.tv. I'm really looking forward to that. No late models at the Big O, but I think they're going to have, if the weather cooperates, if the weather looks good with a double header, nobody else opening up quite yet. Cedar Lake's kind of the other direction a little bit. I can expect them to have a pretty good field of modified super stocks, Midwest mods, street stocks, and I think they have Mod 4s and Hornets or whatever there too. But the top classes, nothing against those classes, but I'm more looking forward to, some of the classes that we're doing the power rankings for. So
actually, what I'm really looking forward to the most is a practice, Shawano Speedway practice. I can actually hear some cars, smell some race fuel, get some dirt in my eye. So.
Oh, you're gonna go? You're gonna go to practice?
I'm probably, at least for a little while.
Yeah. How far do you live from the track there?
Oh, only like 35 miles or 35 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
35
so you're not
minutes.
That far away.
Yeah, it's about, I don't know, 25 miles or so.
So I expect at the very least a few pictures, but maybe an interview or something like that. Maybe maybe you can throw it on Facebook Live and go talk to maybe Brad over there and let him talk about opening weekend. Don't they got they're opening up right that's next weekend with the Dirt Kings, aren't they?
Yes, a week from this coming Saturday. I think it's the 17th of April, whatever that Saturday is. Yeah. So yeah, they're
discount Shock Towels Dirt Kings late model series over there.
And Plymouth is not racing yet at that time, so most of the Plymouth cars I would hope would come up to Shawano and race with that. So, there should be 25 to 30 late models for that show, if not more than 30.
Yeah, so. that'll be a good field for sure. So I'm looking forward to watching that one as well. So with that said, lots of racing coming up. Bert, you're nipping on my heels. You're one behind me in the picks right now, but you are still behind me. I'm going to go ahead and point that out. And I like to win. Not that I want you to lose, but if we're competing, I guess I kind of do. So with that said, I'm Ryan Aho. That is the one and only Bert Lehman. And as Puka always says, go out there, be your dream. Thanks for tuning in to the One to Go Show.